Ladies and gentlemen, it is 3 p.m. Thursday, August 18th, 2016. Time for the meeting of the Gateway Services Community Development District Board of Supervisors. We have a quorum. Would you stand and join us in a pledge to our flag and country? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. If you have a noise-making device like this, please put it on mute for the balance of the meeting. If you wish to speak to the board this evening, there are forms near the door. Mr. Manager, do we have folks who would like to speak to the board this evening?
We now have two. The first one is Ed Tinkle. He has 6 non-agenda items.
That's a record.
That's 3 times 6, so 18 minutes. Is that how it works? No, it shouldn't go that fast. Ed Tinkle, for the record, 11180 Bent Pine Drive. Item 1 hit this, and I'm not advocating for. I'm just trying to relay information. I was with the Hammock Cove developers today, and they asked me if I have any idea as to why the board is not recording the approval of the utility and drainage documents that was approved by the board about 2 months ago. What do we need to do to get that approved?
Would you say that again, please? Why the board
Hammock
is not approving what?
Has not recorded the approval of the receipt of the utilities and the drainage for the Hammock Cove project.
Well, I don't know the answer to that. Is there anyone present who does? We'll look into that, Ed. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're in the process of our HOA taking over stuff, and some of it's going to cross with that, and I just want to make sure that I'm not accepting something that you know something that I don't know, and we're out on a limb, and I hear a saw. I've been down that road before. Next item, pond restoration. It's my understanding we now have SRF approval of our facilities plan, and everything is ready to go. I'm concerned that we've got 13 ponds in our Phase 1 project. We need to be getting a contract for the design services and the surveying services to get this thing going as quick as possible in light of the fact that hopefully by the end of November, the ponds are receding and we can start on these slope restorations. I would hate to wait till November and we start thinking about things of advertisement and approvals, knowing that we're now in the SRF process. It's a mother may I process. You have to get their approval to go from step to step to step. Now, I've been told that it's not a long process, but I've heard that before. So I just want to make sure that we've got a contract and or an authorization notice to proceed to Tetra Tech to be doing this work. We've done way too much to let this fall through the cracks. The other issue is that I think you all need to talk about is what the term is. You've got a $6 million loan, and we have plus or minus 50,000 feet of banks in these ponds, these 13 ponds. Are we going to try to do this in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? What's the basis proceeding? I know out on the street, the people would like to have it done yesterday. They would like to have it yesterday. So I would be disappointed if we go beyond 2 years. I think there's a issue, and Danny and or Tyler can talk about it. There's an issue of just what the ability of these vendors are to do that. And I'm certainly not suggesting that we go out and have multiple contracts and have multiple vendors in here. We have a hard time sometimes with one vendor, let alone multiple vendors. But you all need to discuss that. So
hey, Ed, real quick, is there any restrictions or constraints on us starting that process this year as far as the funding? Is it
we could have started it last week.
Yeah. I mean, again, ideally it's when it's approved, when it's officially approved. And I believe, Tyler, you said what?
30 days ago.
Is it officially approved?
Hello, I'm Tyler Wainwright. I'm with Tetra Tech. It is not formally approved yet. No, it is. It has gone through the DEP's review. The DEP has tentatively accepted it. It has gone out to what they call the clearinghouse, which is where they send that facilities plan out to all the million various agencies throughout the state. I believe it has cleared that hurdle. So the last one is, I believe there's, I don't know the name of the meeting, but it's essentially like a wrap-up meeting where they finalize everything and say yes, 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 and formally accept everything. So I think that meeting takes place, I think the end of this month, the 20-something. I'll find out the exact date. But once that happens, then we are formally 100% ready to go.
So do we have, will we do like an RFI, RFP, Ed, in your opinion, to select the vendor?
No, just immediately issue a contract to them.
Oh,
Have
so-
them submit a contract for the design. In other words, it's a continuation of the project. They've done the facilities plan, which is step one. Step two is the design phase.
All right, so what do we need to do in order to get it started? What are you looking for?
My opinion is have them give you a contract for the design and surveys of phase one.
So as a follow-up to that, on the next board meeting, you will see a proposal from us to complete that design.
Okay.
Feel like
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Feel like
just a
Abbott and
question,
Costello
Tyler.
here.
Tyler, from the perspective of the SRF, any loan documents or documents associated with the financial end of it, is there an estimated time frame as to when those will be received so the board can review them and for us to accept it, and so then we can get that piece done?
There is a whole slew of documents that will need to be reviewed and signed, obviously, and all that. I don't know a time frame when we will receive that, but I will find out.
Thank you.
Thanks on that one, Bill. Next item is, this is a simple one, but as a result of the Disney issue, this alligator. I had sent to April today earlier a warning that we had gotten from our attorneys over in Gateway Greens, suggesting that, and you guys, since you own, operate, and maintain the majority of the ponds, you might want to consider alligator warning signs out, and maybe even want to add reptiles to it because we got snakes, and put them out around Gateway to whatever would satisfy whatever our insurance requirements are. Our insurance company was scared to death when we owned the ponds, but since we don't own them anymore and that we negotiated with you guys to take them over, we got off from underneath that. But I still think something needs to be done because we have some nice size alligators in these ponds. But anyway, I gave that information to April. Next one, pond advertisement. Pelican Reserve just had their advertisement go in the newspaper the other day, and their pre-bid meeting is the 25th of August. I just wanted to check and see where we're at on our advertisement. I think the last I heard is we were shooting for our pre-bid meeting on September the 9th. Didn't know, I don't think, April, that's out of your hands now. It's with ST, is that correct?
I know that that staff went over to wrap that up. I believe it was yesterday or today. So I'm not sure exactly where we are.
Okay, that schedule, what I want to make sure is that the board members know is that notice to proceed, or that notice to vendors, notice to bidders that I gave you has been jumbled on the schedule because that was anticipating an advertisement last week. That didn't happen, so we had to move stuff back. So we're waiting on that advertisement because till that advertisement goes out, the next events can't occur. And when that advertisement goes out, we should have all the bid documents or the packages ready for the vendors to come in and get, and then immediately after that have the pre-bid meeting, which for us, like PP, is a mandatory meeting. So big thing is I want to get that advertisement on the street.
Time out. April, do you know who's responsible for the advertising of this item?
Yes, so this document that Mr. Tinkle and staff have been working on is much more comprehensive than the Pelican Preserve document that was vetted. We did get the Pelican Preserve vetted this last week, and we're still working on the final revisions of the ad that needs to go into the paper, and staff was working on that this week. We had a big long schedule in there, so we wanted to take that out of the actual ad and just include that in the document. So basically what happens is once we finalize the draft and we get everything set, that this is the document, we combine everything into a PDF, it goes over to ST, and they will submit it to the paper. So we're just finalizing the document right now.
The problem I had with this, and this is going to get into a legal issue, but my hat from up north, if you had dates that were critical to the knowledge of the notice, they should be in the notice. And what I was told here, I was talking to Elle, is you guys don't do it that way. Well, we had in that schedule a list of things that were going to happen. In other words, when we were going to have the pre-bid, when we were going to have the notices of the qualified bidders, and all those dates in there. And I thought those were purposeful because of the fact that they protected you from having to do a second notice. But what I'm hearing is that we're omitting them, and Tony, when you approved them, I thought you were improving them inclusive of that, and they're saying now they're not necessary, so this is catching me by surprise. I've never done work this way.
I've not had any conversations on this since I last had my comment, and I can't recall exactly the notice. I can try to pull it up that I reviewed and approved.
Well, what they're doing is taking the schedule.
Yeah, the schedule does not.
And taking it
contain
out.
the notice of invitation for people to submit for pre-qualification. That does not need to be, it could be in the documents that they pick up.
Okay, but then that's a little different than I'm accustomed to, or accustomed
It can be in
to.
the documents, and the document will have the proposed schedule.
Okay, okay, well, then that would certainly shorten the length of the paper ad, but
Yes.
I just like to be able to tell vendors what's going to happen so they know when they come
Yeah,
in.
again, that could be in the bid package so that they know
Okay.
when they come and pick it up,
Okay.
because it is a mandatory pre-bid meeting, and that will be, I assume that will be discussed also.
That's-
And that-
that's
that
what we
schedule
Yeah,
will be-
yeah. Well, the key is right now is getting the thing in the paper so that we can get on the street and have our pre-bid meeting. And I think we can still do that because we were tentatively set for the pre-bid meeting September the 9th, Friday the 9th at 10 o'clock. I think we can still meet that.
I had staff make sure that we wasn't conflicting with any of the Pelican, meetings.
Yeah, because I know they're meeting the 25th. Yeah, Bill, that's it.
April,
This is the-
when will we get that done? When will we actually be able to get that advertised? When do you, how long do you think it's
I'm
gonna
hoping
take?
that it's gonna be in the paper by the end of next week.
Will that keep us on track of what the schedule is?
Well, we have to have what, Tony, 7 days? Print
Yes,
7 days?
7 days.
So if it's September 9th, and next week is 19, 7, 20, getting close.
Well, we changed our board meeting in September to the 22nd.
Yeah, and-
To fall in line with all of this.
And that's nixed.
Delightful.
Delightful, that's what I figured it would be said. I thought it might be a little harsher than that, but because of this pushback, I'll leave that up to you guys. But we first need to know what the date is that's going to be published to be able to verify just how this thing's going to click out. If it does go, like April says, next week, we should stay online, and maybe what we need to do, April, is get to the board as quick as possible, the new adjusted schedule based upon a publication date next week.
Somebody will adjust this schedule
Yeah.
for me when we know what it is that so?
I just assume that coming to you all from April, not from me.
That's correct.
Okay, she and I can
should have
work
made that-
together.
I should have made that more clear, but at the moment, we have a September 22nd board meeting scheduled.
Yeah, and that was because of the schedule that we had on anticipation of
I know,
having it.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
So we need to shoot for that publication to go out, I'd say Wednesday or Thursday.
And then it gives us more than 7
It gives
days
us a date, and
to
if
the
it's
9th.
not done by next week, then.
Then we
need
got to reshuffle.
Yeah, then we're in the red. and
Good. I
it's
agree.
Unacceptable.
Next time I had is easements, and I'm gonna bug Tony again. Have we had any success in talking to WCI on these easements for access? I certainly would like to have an answer to that before we have that pre-bid meeting, because this thing is relying on these guys getting there.
In fact, I had a brief conversation with Scott Connell, unrelated to the day I brought up this issue again, because of Scott's prior relationship with Worthington, and I'll just keep tagging that.
Worthington.
He is, because Worthington was involved in the
Oh,
past.
okay, okay.
But I'll keep following that in.
Okay.
It is important, that's on my list for Area 9, that's what, when WCI submitted their packet for Area 9, that was one of the issues that I mentioned needs to be resolved before we accept the fee title to that property.
That's other side of I-75.
Right.
Yeah, that one's critical because of the nature and the magnitude of the work
Yes.
to be done. But the issue that's equally a problem for us that has just been absolutely unaddressed by anybody in pond maintenance is Flowway 4. It's like no man's
That
land.
I hadn't done, so thank you for that.
Okay, okay. Last time I had is just a suggestion, a request, that you guys have been talking about this management scheme and how this thing's gonna go forward for the next umpteen years. And I would just ask that you sit back, get a workshop, and try to focus your attention on these 3 top positions that we've got here that are needed here at Gateway, and just concentrate on, forget what water's gone over the dam, and try to get that stuff done. Get that workshop to get those 3 positions nailed down as to what they need to be, what the requirements are for them. If we have to go out and advertise, we go out and advertise, but get that done, because to me, doing anything else on an org chart until you've got that nailed down as to what the duties and scopes of those are, just a waste of time.
What 3
I think a
positions are you
workshop.
talking about?
In my opinion, it would be an admin position, a utilities manager, of which I believe you've got an excellent one right now that, at least from my perspective, of working with him for the last 30 days, and a Public Works Director.
And a what? And-
Public Works Director. Say that twice. Public Works Director. And I really think that needs to be a workshop that you guys work on and try to hammer out the details. Obviously, I would like to see the decisions made on this after the elections, but that's for you all to decide. But I think there's a lot of homework to be done way before going to that, and that is agreeing upon how this thing's going to operate going forward and how the district management company is going to work. I can see the vision, or have a vision, to where you get 3 people very good and qualified in those positions, then the work that the management company would be more of an à la carte type of arrangement, that you would indicate the things that you want them to do. Like some of the things that were statutory related, there's nobody here that needs to get in that kind of stuff. That's their expertise. Let them do that. Some of the financial stuff that Stephen's done, and I hammer their firm every once in a while, quite often, but their financial stuff is very good. It's very good. So maybe keep that on a side there. But you got a lot of decisions on how to proceed, but I think the first one is to have that workshop and you guys agree on, have consensus on how you go forward relative to the staffing and what the details of
Thank you, Ed.
the responsibilities.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Last up is Robert, who wants to discuss Track L.
Bob Geppert from Pelican Preserve, and mine is an agenda item, so if you want me to wait until you get to the Track L pipe inspection. But I know this came before the board before, and it was an excellent suggestion to try and get WCI to pay. I don't think that worked out real well, based on the Neil Montgomery letter that I saw. So I'm coming before you today to say, if it comes up today, we have budgeted money for it. We have a qualified contractor ready to go. And from our perspective, the sooner we do it, the better.
Time out.
Yep.
Second, please, Bob. Do you want to get into this discussion?
I don't know if we need to, but I think there's an email that we received from the April forwarded that WCI is willing to take care of that. Is that correct?
Yes, and I thought Mr. Codwell was going to be here tonight.
They want to pay for it?
No, bear with me. Let me try to retrieve that email.
Wunderbar.
They blinked. We didn't see that.
Well, that's great.
Okay, so,
I think
okay.
it just came in yesterday, April,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
Do we have it in writing?
Let me.
Do we have it in writing from David?
Yes.
I'll try to retrieve it.
Okay. Then my only question is, I understand, at least I think I'm hearing they're going to pay. I'm great. Are we still going to have Marsh Riley do it? Because they're the people we have confidence in. I don't want to have Who Struck John doing it, because
Who was that?
I don't want a brother-in-law job here. We want somebody we know and we have dealt with, and the price is very competitive. It's a very good price. So if they'll pay for it, that's super.
Yeah, you're in control of that end of it.
If that's the case, if they're just writing a check, I'm all in favor of it.
You okay?
Well, I just want to clarify. Mr. Caldwell called yesterday and offered to pay for the pipe cleaning. He would like to engage-
Inspection, not cleaning, right?
Inspection, I apologize. He would like to engage Morris Riley on the same engagement, but between Morris Riley and WCI.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, in fact, they confirmed the email from April to him. It did say cleaning, but April will clarify it as the viewing. It's an email from April to David yesterday at 12:30. Along Mr. Caldwell, thank you for calling today and agreeing to pay for
You're welcome.
the pipe cleaning.
Excellent.
I was looking at, for you to say something.
It saves us 10 grand, so we're very happy. Now, if this could evolve, now, depending on what the inspection shows, then we may or may not have to do cleaning, and we'll come back to the board when we get to that. And WCI should totally pay for that if it's required.
Okay, that's good news. The other news is WCI wants us to, this board to approve the Track L acceptance. My position at the moment is we're not ready to do any of that until all of that.
Yeah, and Phil's going to speak to, yeah, P-PAC has some issues yet. However, the biggest one on ponds, and I got 2 hats here, I'm talking my ponds hat, is if the inspections come out okay, we have no other objections, provided we hold back money for the lots that have not been developed, which is pretty standard. They've got a number of home spaces where they haven't developed them yet. So whatever the formula is for that, and we'll trust Tetra Tech to come up with that, then we're okay with it.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I've not finished my review memorandum, and one of my concerns that I will address is I want the property appraiser website, and it appears that some of these lakes or ponds were completed in '07, '08, '09, many years ago. And so that's what I need to review and determine what kind of additional assurances we need, so we don't run into that 10-year statute of repose issue that we ran into.
Okay.
You okay, Bob?
The last thing is and Ed talked about the bidding of our new contract for pond maintenance. Pelican is on track for it. We have a pre-bid meeting next Thursday in this room at 2 o'clock. That'll be our work group. And then we have the bid opening, I guess if you will. The response is back on the 8th of September. And we did that at 2 o'clock, and depending on what kind of bids we get back, if the work group approves one of those or selects one in conjunction with the district manager and Tetra Tech, we're going to take it to PPAC later that same afternoon. And then we'll bring it to you guys on the 22nd. So we're hopefully on track to have this thing all resolved before the end of October. And it shouldn't be a big surprise. Everybody knows what they're bidding on, and we have some good reputable contractors.
Everybody good?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Bob.
you.
Mr. Manager?
That's all we have for audience comments.
Thank you. Item 3A, committee reports, landscape advisory committee. Is there anyone here that wants to talk to us about the landscape advisory minutes of June 28th?
If there's no questions, I don't have anything to say.
I have a couple questions, but it may be that April will actually be able to answer these not.
Is this on the telephone?
No, landscape advisory.
No.
There was a note in here about the FPL easement gate, that there's still not a chain up there on the FPL easement road. Did we ever do anything about that?
Is this the new gates that they were installing, or the one up here on Griffin?
There's the one
Please come to the podium.
down, there
Griffin.
used to be a chain off of Gateway Boulevard where the gravel road.
And if I understand correctly, the new gates have been installed. There was a delay with WCI because they had to go back and get some sort of permit revision from the county. And I have not been out there yet. I just heard of that today from staff, that they have been installed out there. And they're similar to the gate that's over on Griffin.
And you're talking about by Hampton Park, is that right?
I believe there was a couple of them that they installed.
Well, who would know?
But,
Wait,
I'm sorry.
Kathleen, can you help us out there?
Sure, we're talking about the ones that are across from the metal gates that go behind Stony Brook and I guess Hampton Park. And when I went by today, there was nothing there.
You're talking about
Maybe it's not
at the
up.
Hampton Park intersection?
No.
Inside,
No,
or
it's-
Gateway Boulevard,
Gateway
where the
Boulevard.
gravel is?
Right.
Yeah, there
Okay.
used to be a chain
Chain.
there that was locked so that people couldn't just pull in back there.
And where are we expecting gates? At the entrance by Gateway Boulevard, right? Is that,
I don't know if there was ever one planned for
Gate.
there, but at Hampton Park, because the FPL roadway is
Intersects,
inside their
yeah.
gate, there was gonna be gates there to stop people from just being able to avoid the gatehouse at Hampton Park and drive right in
Okay.
to Hampton Park.
so I'd like a little clarity on where,
Kathleen, there
where
was
there's supposed to be
an
gates.
issue, if I'm correct, about a truck or something that was.
Yeah, they were talking about them going down and doing,
Donuts and
yeah,
stuff.
whatever they were doing down there. And we had talked and asked when that was going to be closed off totally, both ends, I
So
guess.
that's the same place that
yes.
you are talking to Doug and Margaret about, is that correct?
Right, yeah, because it's supposed to be closed at both ends, at Hampton Park and at Gateway. I'm sorry.
Okay. So
With the
there was-
chain on Gateway, the game, and the
So
chain has
before it was
disappeared.
two poles with a chain,
Right.
just like we have across the street.
Yep.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, so now they're to erect a formula or formal gate. Is that true? April?
I thought it was just gonna be a chain.
I understood that it was going to be completely closed off, so now that I'm hearing that the the interior gates are there. I'm surprised that there's not something there, so I can double check with, WCI. Because I think that they think they're done. So
Okay.
I'll double check.
Well, there had been a chain at this particular location where you drive off of Gateway Boulevard to the easement. There'd been a chain there for years, and it's been missing for a while now.
Yeah, and it should probably be something more substantial than a,
I think he
Than just a
used
gate.
cable, just like they have across the street, which you don't wanna hit that.
yeah,
But then
cable
we
or a
don't want
gate,
anybody
you know,
to hit that.
just something. Okay.
Are you finished with this?
One other question was the call for a candidate. Have we done anything about finding another member for this committee?
There was, what I understood from, what I was told is that it was put out to all the HOAs to,
I know
but-
nothing ever went around in our
I
community.
know they
so
didn't, so I had said,
Can we check on that, please, and see if we can get it? Some kind of an email out to the HOAs requesting a candidate for this committee?
Kathleen, how many people exactly are on your committee now?
there's 4 of us,
Okay,
4. Okay,
thank you very much.
thank you.
Any other questions?
That was it.
No.
Okay, we'll make the Landscape Advisory Committee minutes a matter of record. The consent agenda is items 4A through C. Are there members who wish to discuss any items 4A through C? The minutes, contract spreadsheet, maintenance inspection report.
Can we just start getting everything going in one direction rather than having to change the view every time we get reports of dates that go 90 degrees askew and then
Excellent idea. Would you,
I need to, oh, go ahead.
when we're looking at.
Talking about the contract spreadsheets
Yeah,
that-
when we're looking at the various items in the
Yeah,
agenda, you
instead of
can see
vertical.
this.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, we're big boys and girls and we can change it, but it just gets irritating after a while changing
Sure.
it back. Yeah, thank you. Anything else?
nope.
Doug?
I need to make some corrections on the minutes, so.
Okay, this is the July 7th minutes,
Yes.
which begin on page 14 of our,
Yes. Line 83 and line 88, sheriff
Yep.
is misspelled.
oh yes.
And just a question to Tony. On line 52, it said district council suggested having a meeting with the sheriff department representative to give direction on what can be done by the district, and that was regarding the fun park. Did that meeting take place?
We haven't had that yet, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
That was it.
Doug? Okay. Motion for approval, please.
Motion to approve consent agenda items for A, B, and C.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other further conversation? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4-0, Mr. Manager. Discussion items. Number 5A, approval of expenditures for Pelican Preserve Pipe Inspection Track L turnover. I think we're not gonna discuss that one at all, if that's all right with other
Yeah.
members.
Bill?
Yes, Bob?
Oh, okay. I guess we are.
No.
This will be very brief, but I find it extremely frustrating. A document came into the district offices yesterday, and Pond's work group wasn't even told about it before this meeting. That's just unacceptable. I mean, we're working out there all the time on these kind of items, specifically these items. I go out of my way to make sure that April is included in all of our correspondence, and I would like to have that same courtesy back on something important like this.
Just 1 second there.
Sure.
I'm talking about the Caldwell letter, yeah.
I'm sorry, you talking about what?
The Dave Caldwell letter that
Well, my understanding, there is not a letter. It was a telephone call.
Okay, then a
They were
phone
gonna
call.
ask him for a confirmation letter right away.
But something. I would just like to have been in the loop. I don't think that's asking a lot.
Thank you. Okay, 5B is our fiscal 2017 tentative budget version 5. Stephen, can you help us here, please?
Stephen Bloom, Severn Trent. The version you have in here, version 5, is the same that we saw at the last meeting. Have not made any changes. However, you know, the Pelican Preserve budget will be making a change, assuming the board accepts it. PPAC has decided that they would like the assessments. I'm sorry, page 51 starts the budget. There we go. So again, I haven't made any changes from the last version. However, if we go to Fund 002, which is Pelican Preserve,
Can you give us a page number there, please?
52, he said.
page 55 starts Pelican Preserve.
55, okay.
So right now, in the budget, it's shown an increase in assessments. However, when this increased, if you go to page 57, will be kind of the end result of this. When we got the final EAU total, it was much higher than the EAU total that was approved. As a result, in order to level off the budget and balance it, we put that excess into the reserve capital program line, which is the very last line on 57.
Stephen, can I ask you how many EAUs was the increase?
I don't have the exact number,
Rough number?
228, I believe, Gary.
Okay.
but yeah, it was certainly, it was around there. It was quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it happens every year. Unfortunately, by the time we get the official numbers, it's well after we have set our millage, not our millage, the rates. So again.
Excuse me a second. Is the final EAU in here for us to look at?
Yes, if we want to look at it, we can refer to page 71.
Total number now is,
You'll see it on here.
Yeah, it's 3,000.
3,082 or something like
Yeah,
that.
Okay.
3,083 roughly is what the number is right now. And depending upon the type of parcel, the result is an increase of $60.47 or $27. And again, this is comparing year to year. So as a result of what the committee has done, they would like for the assessments to actually be level. They're not looking to have an increase. They've obviously gone through their process and done a great job of coming up with their budget. And now they're prepared to level off this budget. The easy way of doing it would be to reduce the reserve right back to where they originally wanted it, and then that would level off the budget. Didn't make that change yet. I'm asking to make sure the board's comfortable with that. I'd like to make those changes and get that published and out on the website as quickly as possible.
could we get just a 2-minute dissertation by Phil about that? So we've got a public,
We have, in working in concert with Stephen, we've made a number of changes, and as a matter of fact, at our last meeting, we presented to you items that had originally been in next year's budget, $42,000 worth of plant replacements that we suggested be moved to this year. It turns out we have quite a bit of extra this year for two big reasons. Number one, we don't have, we had budgeted for the Cypress Grove Tract L landscaping. We haven't had to do that. We had also budgeted for part of the wall on tree line that turned out to be in the budget for the Master Association. So we've got quite a bit of extra left over. So part of it was the $42,000 that we suggested that and you approved, that we move from next year into this year. This is an ex-budget item for this year. We have two more such items that were in the initial budget for next year. One for about $8,000, another for about $18,000. We are going to suggest that those also be moved into this year. And so and then we are going to add a couple of other things this year. We'll come back to you with those requests that weren't in the budget, but we're going to ask to be doing this year as well. Those are other ex-budget items, and we'll come back to you at the next meeting with those. In any event, so we have managed to reduce our budget. And if you go back to, I guess, what was it, page 52, Stephen? 55, where the item you will see is the, can we do this? You know, it's the agreement, well, yeah, keep going to 57. That's where that's where I'd like to be. Yep. Yep. Yeah, and it's the HOA agreement number. So we are going to reduce the HOA agreement number by a certain amount, and then Stephen's going to make the rest of it up by adjusting the next line, which is the reserve for capital program. And by doing that, we will have flat assessments from this year, from fiscal year 2016 to 2017. There will be no increase.
So the $60.47
7 cents disappears.
goes away?
It goes away. It will be flat. And we are comfortable that we have plenty of room to do that because of, at least in part, because of the extra things we had this year, and also because we had a lot of money in the reserve capital program that Stephen can use to adjust it. So we have asked that be remain flat.
Are you good, Gary?
Yeah, I'm great.
You know that we have to adopt our permanent final budget on September 1st.
Yes.
And so
That's-
the information you gave us verbally has to go to Stephen so he can get it.
Yeah, and Stephen,
in.
Nancy had already communicated that to Stephen. He knows everything. He will make those adjustments. He's familiar with it. It will be in the budget for the September 1st meeting.
All right. Yep, Mr. Attorney.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask a question to Stephen. Stephen, just for clarification, at page 71 then, at EAU count of 929158, is that the EAU count or is it higher? Is that the revised?
You're talking about
71.
On the agenda.
the current, what that's in there, that is the current number.
The total
Yes.
EAU?
Yes.
And that's as revised by
Yes.
the additional?
Yes.
And just for clarification, also, the total assessment to be collected by the district will not exceed the $5,617,000 that was advertised or sent out in the letters?
That is correct, yes.
Just want to make sure. And-
No,
And
understand.
also, I assume the letters went out
Letters went out, ad was in.
prior, I know I saw the ad.
Yes, letters went out, and yes.
Timely fashion?
Yes.
Thank you.
Board members have any other questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you all for doing a great job.
Yes, so kind of to wrap that up, I'll make those changes, and if there was any other questions, comments, or anything else you wanted to talk about, you still will have your budget hearing. That'll be your final time, but you certainly can ask any questions now as well.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
When's the, we were talking about the utilities.
Mhm.
Is it pertinent to bring that up now?
You'll have one more opportunity if you're talking about making changes to the budget this year. I mean, you can bring it up now, you can bring it up.
Yeah, I had a conversation earlier. We don't have any budgeted dollars for expansion in FTE for next year. I talked with Stephen about the general fund. That's kind of locked down. We're good. But on the utility side, which is I think where there may be a potential need for next year, I think we need to consider putting some dollars into on the utility side for potential a headcount increase for next year.
Okay, you're talking about Fund 400, correct? The enterprise fund?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be the enterprise fund. That page starts on 61.
And what is this specifically for?
Well, we haven't really put in any dollars for any staff increase for next year. And I think we won't really know whether we need it until probably a couple months down the road at a minimum. But I think with, you know, at least some conversations that I've had, and what some of the, what staff, especially with talking with Chris, I think we need to possibly look at putting something in the budget for next year. And if we, I'd much rather have it and not need it in this case. So, Chris, is there, in your opinion, do you see, based on what you know now, is there any type of baseline assessment that you can make according to your staff on the utility side as far as, you know, needing additional funds for headcount for next year?
Yeah, baseline, what I look at right now is just the increase in the housing units and the development itself with the onset of Prado and Matarita, Casella, increased counts, increased lift stations coming online. We have 2 we just took, and we'll be taking in 2 more shortly. So it just kind of pushes the staff maintenance-wise.
So by increasing efficiency in our equipment and other things, you think that'll offset the need for headcount?
Yeah, because I still think you're gonna have to have bodies in the field. We're making some progress with our technology, but we're always under more pressure, especially with the economy picking up for locates.
Yeah.
People going to do development projects, for instance, the Tico gas line coming in.
Yeah, so I guess my point is, you know, I guess I'm really looking to you at this point, because we're gonna run out of time, from a budgeting perspective. Would you recommend at this point that we consider putting dollars in for 2017 for additional headcount on the utility side?
I'd certainly consider doing it and let your workshop make the final decision on any staffing increase, whether it would be in that public works realm or actually line level employee.
Can you speak up just a little bit, please?
Sorry about
Move
that.
it. Thank you.
I was saying that I think what should do is put the money in for an FTE. We've been looking at some different positions, but also make that final decision when you have a workshop and discuss the management structure of the utility itself and the entire organization.
Okay. So are you, thanks, Chris, I appreciate that. So we have one more opportunity to do that. I'm just wondering, should, you know, because
You
we
can,
are.
yes, on your public hearing, you can make adjustments to it. Now, with the utility fund, you have a lot more, you know, flexibility than you will with the general fund. So yeah, there are line items here. You have, you know, a capital program as well. You could pull a little bit out of. There are other places. So you will have ways of doing that if you want to.
Okay. I'll kind of withdraw that statement until a further time when we have that last budget review.
Thank you.
Give us a little more time.
Anything else regarding
Well, if
budget?
you're gonna do that, then there should be a rate study. If there's gonna be an increased cost to do business, then there should be a rate study.
You're probably right about that, except,
You can't,
well.
you know, you've got 3 balls in the air. I mean,
We have lots of balls in the air, including a lot more residences being built in Matarita and other places over in Pelican. Stephen just testified that we have lots of flexibility in the enterprise fund at the moment. Don't you think that a rate study, while I'm all for them, if we have a little bit of stability, as long as we've got the flexibility that Stephen testified to, I think we've got other fish to fry that can take our time, and we can wait for that a little bit.
it always seems to get pushed to the back. It's the foundation of the whole system.
Well, if we didn't have a lot of flexibility in that fund, I'd be a lot more inclined to agree with you to go ahead. But there's so many, as you said, there are so many balls in the air right now on that thing.
It should be easy enough for that fellow to update the matrix he'd already created.
All you need to do is, in this case, simple one, you want to put in 50,000, fine. Divide by 50,000 by, rate increase equals you're flatlined, and you move ahead.
Well, we have rate increases already agreed to, do we not?
Yes, we do.
And how much will that then compensate?
Well, really, and here's what we will do, my suggestion anyways. At the end of the year, we're gonna do it, staff is gonna do an informal rate study already for you. It's a requirement of your loan documents. So it won't be the official, but you're gonna get the informal one, and then I can look in those calculations for you. If you're getting close, or if there's so many issues, at that point I would recommend the full-on rate study. But I'm gonna do one for you that's gonna take into account adjustments for growth, adjustments for the rest of the price increases, and then any additional staff that you want I can include into that model. And it basically is what you recommended. It's his model, and I'm just keep updating it every year, add one more year.
Okay, thank you.
Are you good for now?
With Stephen, always.
Okay. Thank you very much,
Thanks.
Stephen. April, you have an item for us on the soccer complex, I believe.
Yes.
Who is this guy? Did Mr. Caldwell want to talk to us? Well, I think we ought to let Mr. Caldwell talk to us.
He wants to, no, really.
Are there any objections?
Obje-
No objections.
David?
So ordered. Come on.
Follow the agenda, so I don't
We're-
need any special permission.
It's all been taken care of.
Everything's done.
Everything's done, David.
It is done.
It's copacetic. Do you want to talk?
You can only mess it up, but.
See, now he'll come.
Dave Caldwell, WCI Communities for the Record. I'm here to speak on item 5A, the approval of expenditures for the Pelican Preserve pipe inspection. Had you addressed this already?
Yeah.
Did you already?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's done.
What?
Unless you change your mind.
We just said we loved you and it's over.
So, if I may speak,
Well,
Please.
there is
Okay.
one issue.
No, yes.
well,
There is an issue. What? If the inspection shows the need to clean, then that's it. Bill, we're gonna tell you.
oh, well, okay. Well, the point was, if it hadn't been already broached with the board, that WCI was agreeing to the request that April had made back in July to do the pipe inspections for Tract L. We had not agreed to do it previously because we believe, and still do, that it wasn't a permit requirement at the time that subdivision area was designed, permitted, and approved under your permit criteria manual. As you're probably aware, that is a current requirement in many of our subdivisions we're building right now. That's part of what we do. Before we turn over, we do the video and make sure they're clean, not broken, whatever. So we felt this was moving the goalpost on us. But after careful consideration within our company, we thought it would just do it. It's not a great deal of money. We trust that after the inspections, if there are any deficiencies, we will fix them. But we're in part agreeing to do this so we can move this item as to the approval of the Tract L drainage and lake system a little more quickly for consideration by this board.
Thank you, David. Would you prepare a letter to that effect for me?
Sure.
At your earliest convenience, and I will see that Mr. Gephardt and others from Pelican Preserve get it as soon as I get it, and that April will. Any questions, Mr. Caldwell?
Just
Thank you. Uh-oh.
April said that you expect to use Morris Riley, so we had.
Morris Riley, yeah, but obviously they're a good firm, you're used to them, they have the equipment, their price is fair and reasonable, and I hate to tell you, but they're cheaper than some of the other companies we've
The
found.
cheapest one we found.
But more importantly, my understanding is they do good quality work that the district can utilize.
Okay.
Everybody happy?
Yep. Totally happy.
All right. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I'm so glad I get to go home early.
Would you send that back? Now, April, would you please bring us your item?
It's not often we get applause from our speakers, so enjoy that.
No one got no money though either, right?
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. April White, your operations manager. I apologize, but I have a walk-on this evening. Oh, I discovered just yesterday that the soccer field's open this past week, and I guess due to some confusion, we have an association on the field without an agreement. There was some confusion with the Elite Academy. We thought that they were under the umbrella of the GSA Association, and they are not. They are acting independently. We do have a current insurance certificate on them. So what we're asking you to do is, we're currently working on the formal agreement with GSA, and I'm also going to work on a formalized agreement for the Elite Academy. And what we're asking you today is for your approval to ratify a permit, a field usage permit, back to the 15th. The next time he's going to access the field is Monday. So we want to try to get that permit in place with an addendum to the permit, with the formal agreement, and the understanding with the Elite Academy that they will be expected to execute a formalized agreement with the district to make sure that we have covered all of our liability issues, because they do access the field routinely, and it's for a full season. It's for 8/15 through 4/26/17. So we're asking you today just for your approval of ratifying a field permit, a usage permit, back to the 15th, and allow staff to work on a formal agreement with the Elite Academy. Did I cover everything, Tony?
Yeah, I guess just briefly, if I may, and part of, I guess the time frame for the field use permit, we anticipate having that until the end of September. And that would give us time to get the formal agreement, hopefully by the September 1st board meeting.
Right.
And that this field use permit would have, as an addendum, I'll call it the guts, the main body and aspect of our typical field usage agreement. So all those requirements for background checks, for insurance and indemnification, will be a multi-page addendum to the field use permit. And that way I can work with April to just excerpt those out of our basic underlying template. And I'm comfortable with that. The board was provide that authorization.
May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Motion and second. Any conversation?
Yeah. Years ago, when this whole thing started with Christian Soccer Association opened their books to show us that they were fully a nonprofit type situation, because they realized that the whole community was having to pay for a deficit situation. With the recent situation, we've had a absolute refusal to open any kind of books. We haven't increased any of the rates. We're going out to improve the fields and keep them running all the time with the landscaping requirements and the field maintenance requirements. New lighting that's going upwards of $400,000. A request a meeting or two ago by one of the board members that they thought that it would be a good idea for us to improve the storage for the soccer, which, by the way, the Christian Soccer Association paid for all of their own storage and built their own storage at their expense. Also, the maintenance of the goals. Christian Soccer Association maintained, built, bought their own goals. We didn't. So there's a complete deflection of these costs, and we have no idea what the profit margin is or isn't. We've also been requested to reduce the insurance coverage, and this just keeps going on. How do you keep justifying running a deficit situation and constantly spending more money while other people never give you an idea of what their financial situation is?
Are you finished?
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman. Elite, I'm not sure of the relationship between Elite and GSA. And Elite is an LLC.
Yeah, there is none. I got an
If there isn't,
okay.
I think that's just.
Yes, there is
for the
none.
record. And one thing I'm comfortable and happy with Elite is that their insurance does meet the criteria the district had for $1 million and $3 million, which has been the criteria that Mr. Ellison did not want to have with GSA, so they have provided that. And we'll ask them for additional endorsement that we saw for another entity, but theirs meets those covers.
Further conversation? Board will recall that it passed a resolution several months ago, making it clear that soccer was to continue here at Gateway, and dispensing with any further arguments. Motion, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
3-1, Mr. Manager. Ladies and gentlemen, ready for staff reports. District Council.
Yes, April, I think we'll be bringing this up. The district received and April distributed to all Lee County's true-up correspondence and some other creative requests on the part of Lee County from the standpoint of R&R at the plant, and Tyler's already sort of chimed in on that. And what we're in the process, I understand it, we'll be contacting Mike Burton to review the true-up analysis, because they're indicating we owe them $95,000 for last year. And they're also indicating a rate, $3.01 for a 1,000-gallon rate effective 10/1 for, is that for wastewater? Tyler?
It's rehabbing the old plant, the wastewater plant.
So the question about whether or not it's even an appropriate number for us, so hopefully we'll be bringing that to you once we engage Mike, hopefully before the end of September.
Anything you'd like to add to that, Tyler?
No, sir.
Anything from the board members? Please continue, Mr. Ferris.
The target date for me to provide the materials for Lee County, end of September, but because the title commitment, I don't have it yet. I thought I would have it by now. And it's going to take a couple of weeks for the surveyor to enter that data. So that's my target date.
Is that all?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Engineer.
Hello, Tyler Wainwright again with Tetra Tech. I do have one thing, I guess, to discuss, which is the Tract L conveyance over in Pelican Preserve. So
Waited until David left.
I waited until David left, smartly. So here is the deal. There are, I guess, two components, you could say, of the Tract L turnover. One is stormwater, one is roads. The stormwater component is more or less, let's call it, taken care of with them agreeing to inspect the pipes. The other part about the roads is maybe it is, maybe it's not. So PPAC has made some recommendations about improvements they would like to see on specifically Cypress Grove Drive. So I guess we're just looking for some guidance from this board about if we want to go back to WCI and make them do those improvements or not.
What are the items?
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items specific to roads. I mean, I can read them here. One is street lighting along Cypress Grove Drive, basically looking for more lighting. One is relocating the golf cart crossing. Excuse me. Between.
That's not a small one.
No, sir. That's not a small item, but that's one item recommended by PPAC.
We did say reroute, not necessarily relocate. Reroute the golf carts if necessary.
Okay.
Right now, what, further explanation, Phil? You need to hear. This is a dangerous situation.
Phil Measy, PPAC, yeah, we have what we believe is a real potential safety problem on Cypress Grove. The golf carts, particularly when people are crossing from IBIS 8 to IBIS 9, they come out on the side of the road, and there is very, very little visibility for cars coming around the corner there. It is an accident waiting to happen. Now, I should tell you that honestly, many people who play golf, myself included, don't take that route because it is a dangerous route. and it should not, we should not have, have golf carts traveling on it. We're gonna have an accident there. So what we are requesting is either relocating or rerouting that, in other words, putting signs, or I don't know quite how to do it. I'm not clever enough to figure it out, but not having the golf carts crossing the road at that point. It's gonna be very, very dangerous. It's a real safety problem.
My recollection of that is that it's possible to do what you're suggesting for a relatively small amount of money.
Yeah,
If it's done right.
That's correct. I would agree that it's possible, yeah.
Phil, do you have your rerouting option? Is that something documented that you're looking to send back to WCI? Because I mean
Well, we have submitted on a couple of occasions. Tony's received it, Tyler has received it, the list of the 5 things that we think need to be done that were not in the work that was done by Tetra Tech. And this is one of them. And so.
Is that
Doug,
option detailed? I guess what I'm asking is, when you say rerouting, because I think that's, we have to be very careful that we're not, biting off a little more than we can chew here. But with the rerouting, does PPAC have a cited recommendation on what that rerouting?
No.
No.
We do not. We do not.
Is that something that you could articulate in a document?
If I may, Mr. Banks and Mr. Turner, if I may, yeah, Mr. Measy and PPAC were kind enough to provide the report outlining these issues, and I had an opportunity to review them when I prepared my memorandum from a legal perspective. And I was talking to Mr. Measy before because I put in my memorandum 2 other considerations that PPAC had raised with regards to the roadway track. One about reimbursement for street lighting costs, and the second one about signage. And Phil said, what'd you leave the other 3 out for? And I explained to him, I said, from my perspective, it didn't seem to be concurrence from any other engineer at that time with the approach, but it was something that I thought would be appropriate to include in the full packet when it comes to the board for the review. In other words, Tetra Tech would have their recommendation, I would have my recommendation to the board, and the PPAC would have theirs. So once again, I think it's a good topic to bring up today, but I think from a more comprehensive discussion perspective, when the board gets the whole conveyance package, I think that's when, it's a good heads up, I think. You want to be able to see it.
Yeah, Doug, I think that this is a, this is a traffic engineer kind of thing.
And I understand. I guess my point is, WCI has shown some good faith. They're trying to get us to the point of execution. I would hate for them just to reject reject that request. Instead of, if we can give them a solution that the PPAC will be comfortable with, that is more of a rerouting, something that might be more palatable for them. And we might wait for them to reject and then counter. So I was just trying to see if there's a solution that would be acceptable.
I believe there's probably a way of doing a rerouting that would not be that expensive.
Okay.
That
would be
probably be
acceptable
acceptable
to
to
PPAC. That's the only thing I
us
was
and to
looking for.
WCI.
Shoot for the
Is
moon,
all
land
we're
on the roof.
doing is, we don't have an engineering study, but we are just pointing out a very what we believe to be, and the Safety and Security Work Group has looked at this, we believe to be a very dangerous situation.
Okay.
Phil, I've written down 3, the street lighting, the signage, and this rerouting, but I don't have the other 2.
Okay, well, we think there should be a stop sign at Azura Drive.
If you want to, Mr. Chairman, I can email, forward it to you, PPAC's.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll do that now.
That'd be
Yeah, and that lists both the 2 items that Tony included in his memo, as well as 3,
I did not.
as the 3 that he did not.
Just give me the last one.
Well, let's see, the traffic signage, let's see.
Street lighting,
This-
signage.
huh?
The turn,
The turn.
Missouri onto Cypress Grove Drive, is that?
Yes, that one, and let me see, I'm trying to figure out which one.
I think it's a
Oh,
speed limit sign.
speed limit the speed limit signs, but that's in your memo. That is, there are only 2 speed limit signs on Cypress Grove Drive at this point. One eastbound and one westbound. We think that's inadequate. We think there should be 2 more, one eastbound, one westbound, and in fact, in that case, we have actually cited where we believe those should go, specifically where those should go. And I might add that particular one, that Tony, and maybe you could add that to your memo, because the placement of those signs and that recommendation was also made by
That
the,
was also made by the
by the
engineer.
transportation engineer.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that.
Yes, I didn't make that clear in the memo.
So I'll get my second revised memo.
Yeah, right, okay.
Thank you.
Are you finished with this?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Thanks, Phil. So I guess my purpose of bringing this up today is I don't want to get to the point where we're bringing a recommendation before this board and having not addressed all this. So all of these are construction items that if we're going to make them do, I mean, they're going to take some time to do. So maybe at the next board meeting, we can sort of summarize all these, and the board can make a decision on what we're going to ask WCI to do and what not to do, I suppose.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
District manager?
I have nothing else.
Okay, board members, supervisor comments. Gary?
I think Chris has something to show us. Quick utility report.
Thank you. Oh, I saw this on the bulletin board when I was in here.
Thank you, sir.
You know what this means?
Anyway, Chris Shoemaker,
Means we got trouble.
Any
Trouble
this
in River
means-
City?
Yeah, exactly.
Looks like the flight engineers panel.
well, that was basically just a screenshot off our monitor in the back, and one of our most recent upgrades is we had BCI Technologies come in and they installed a new controller on our irrigation system, the variable frequency drives back there. And it's a big help from a maintenance standpoint to be able to balance out the hours the pumps run and keep them even, and look at that from a maintenance standpoint when they need to be serviced. And also the data coming from that system will be a big help when they're trying to calibrate irrigation models or how much water is being used within the district. And also for a very minimal fee, you can piggyback it onto Verizon, and anytime there's a pump that goes out or a power outage, that can be sent to our cell phones to let us know.
Will you tell us what we're looking at here?
Basically, it's a real time of the 5 variable speed pumps that operate the irrigation system in the back. And when the jockey pump keeps the first pump keeps the pressure in the system, and the other ones come on as they're needed to keep the set point pressure, which we have at 80 pounds right now. And you can also look at that from your smartphone, and we also have the PLC out in the control trailer, and then we have it wired into this building. And the next step that we'll take with that is we'll be in September, BCI will be back out, and they'll be putting the major pump stations on that same system, and also a couple of the new stations that are coming in. So we'll be able to monitor those stations remotely and get alarms on our cell phone if there's any problems with those stations, versus someone calling you and saying there's an alarm or a light on, and it'll notify you if the power's off or the wet well levels are too high. So it's just remote.
So this is just a monitoring snapshot, right? Just
Right.
give us a visual of what the monitoring looks like.
Right.
Okay.
And it's up and running in the back room if
Right.
anybody would like to see it.
Now, is it where it says the process variable at 78? Is that where it should be? Or
It's set at 80, so it's a
should
little
that
bit-
green be 80?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there any
And
reason
it'll
why
come
it's-
up to that. It was probably
Okay, it was probably
just-
ramping up. Okay,
Right.
great.
One of the other pumps was ramping up, and sometime you'll see a little blip in the
Little,
data there.
very, okay, I got it.
Been a long time.
Yep.
Told you, we got somebody.
Well, and
This is great, by the way. This is really good stuff.
Yeah, and it really, it helps all the way around. So those are two things that are going on. Also, we did have approximately 100 of the larger water meters to install. That'll get underway with US Water next Tuesday. We'll be doing all the irrigation meters first and coming in for the larger meters. And those are installations like the Gardner Building and the schools that require special access or after hours, because you plan on having the water down for 20 or 30 minutes during a standard meter change. The larger ones could take 45 minutes to an hour, and we don't want to shut a 4-story building off for an hour in the middle of the day. So we'll be doing those in the evening and on Saturdays, and the school's the same thing.
And Chris, what's that process? So when you install those meters, is there, do we come back around and kind of audit that installation to make sure that?
Well, we actually have an audit sheet for each meter, and with the old meter number in there and the new meter configuration that's going to be going in, and it asks for a read when that old meter's pulled out, and also the read from the new meter that's installed, and it's signed by the installer, and it's also signed by our in-house inspector. And then we'll turn that over to the billing system so it can immediately be entered into that system. And another thing of note, we did order our trailer-mounted bypass pump, and that was a little more than $50,000. We do have a spare tire for it. We have the trailer lock. I'm working on the jack because they don't make one for it, but we're going to find a bracket and put one on. They're building a pump. It'll be about 4 or 5 weeks till it actually gets delivered. And also DEI submitted plans for our review, and this is moving quickly, for 11,500 feet of natural gas main from TECO. Basically, it'll be Griffin to Gateway and down to Commerce Lakes. If you look at the plans, that gas line will cross our stormwater and potable and reclaimed and wastewater lines 75 different times.
Fantastic.
So it's
I see no problems there at all.
GIS, I hope.
Well, we're actually gonna take the opportunity to locate a little more closely some of our lines, but they're contractors charged with potholing our lines and finding them and also protecting them. We will, however, be on the scene every time they're there, and we'll also have repair crews available because undoubtedly they will hit something. Whether it's we hope it's just a stormwater line, but we want to be there right on top of it.
Yeah.
But
Did you
that'll be a
also
big.
tell us about the van, what you've done with the van?
We did take the van that we have, and we outfitted it with a number of spare parts, and we had been purchasing spare parts for our lift stations. There were a number of just the warning bulbs that were out, a number of fuses, and half a dozen hour meters that weren't working properly. So we've stocked up on spare parts, and we now have 2 sets of spares for all the stations, fuses, relays, and even a couple motor starters.
Yeah.
So
Known
if
as rolling thunder.
it is, and so if something happens, we have the parts here. We don't have to go chase it to go fix it.
Great.
Cool. I'm going to ask one question. This came to me with the idea of the 75 crossings. Do you know if Mastech or any other contractors that have been out here that caused damages that they've not paid us for, or any of the subs or contractors on that?
I haven't. I've stopped a couple times and taken a few pictures where I've seen a big truck or a cable truck like pull up on a sidewalk.
I'm talking about the TECO job.
Oh.
Who are you using? Because, again, they never came to the table from us on the.
It won't be Mastech.
Okay, it won't be Mastech, okay.
And we'll keep an eye out for that for some ancillary damage in case they crack sidewalks or break something.
Because the first person they're going to point the finger at is us, which is their approach.
Right.
When will that start?
They gave us the plans yesterday and would like them back for review, and they're hoping to get started after Labor Day.
Cool.
So they want to get in and get out. Both sides.
Oh, yeah.
They cross over and back in one case too, but it's all gonna be bore, and the majority of it will be 2-inch line.
Sounds like spaghetti junction.
Yeah.
Thank you, Margaret. You have, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, my operations manager report isn't on the agenda, but would you like me to update you on a few things? And
Please.
I'll try to be quick. I just want to let you know on the utilities, the meter audits, we have been sending out some letters communicating with residents. So they've been engaged in some conversation as far as their increases in their bills and exactly what the result of the audit was relative to their specific meters. So customer service has been quite busy with working on those issues. The roadway landscape master plan, we had our second admin meeting, and Mr. Pricey is ready to do a presentation to the Landscape Advisory Committee on the 23rd. And that's basically going to be a presentation to go over some of the inventory issues, some of the first issues that he's noticed while he was walking the property, and also to kind of regroup with the Landscape Advisory Committee on a schedule and kind of like a plan on how we see this working and who's going to be doing what and who's going to be communicating with who. And then after that, we will also prepare a presentation for the supervisors as well for an upcoming meeting. Let's see. I'll save the fun part to last. A battery backup system has been ordered for the Brevo equipment at the dog park, and I believe that should be, I think they said 3 or 4 weeks for that to be in. And the sports complex lighting, we're fixing to work on getting the contractor scheduled to do the repairs that were previously approved by the board. And the PA system at the sports complex has been fixed. It's operational now. We have not fixed one of the speakers on one of the poles. I believe it's between fields 4 and 5. That's a bigger issue. The wire has multiple breaks in it, so it's a matter of getting the right equipment and going out there and finding that.
But I don't think you need to fix the wire, you just need to run a new one, right?
I'm not sure exactly what our approach is. I'll talk to staff about that to see.
Okay.
I wasn't at that meeting. Staff handled that, so I'll have to find that out.
Okay.
Okay, on the fun park, I met with, first of all, the lighting. I met with a vendor, Apollo Metro, and I was very impressed with the product that they have. The way that I understand it is the supervisors are interested in having cameras there, some lighting, and to strongly monitor, who's coming in and out of the park and when. So Apollo Metro has a light pole where they can incorporate all of those functions in their pole. So it's LED lighting, so we will be able to put multiple LED lights on with the current wattage that's there. And
And that's tying into the existing?
The existing
The
grid.
existing light?
Mm-hmm.
In that grid?
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have to move?
What we talked about so far, and it's all very, very preliminary. We haven't drilled down on any specific proposals. I wanted to vet the idea to you first. This company is apparently the only provider in the U.S. that does all of these functions on one pole instead of doing it a la carte.
Okay.
So that I thought was good for us. So what we had talked about when we went out there is we have an existing pole there with 2 lamps to utilize that pole for a north view of the parking lot, add another pole for the south view of the basketball court, and add a pole out by just a little west of the entrance where it would be lighting the streetway and also the entry to the park. And we could actually put a camera. He has cameras that we could set it to stream, you can set it to snap pictures, but they're motion censored, the cameras, so every time the pixel changes, we can set the software to snap a picture or start streaming videos. They can even, their technology will even allow you to have a voice command notification that if somebody activates the camera where there's a voice box on the pole that actually says, the park is closed, you need to leave the park immediately, and the appropriate authorities are being contacted. So they have it set up to where when the pixels move and there's motion there on the cameras, that emails can be sent to let somebody know that someone's in the park. It's really
Is that what
really
Cypress
quite
Point has? Is that something along lines as what Cypress Point has today? I think Kendra said something about they had a voice activated system. You do?
I'm not sure,
Okay.
but it,
At the pool? Yeah.
It was very, the technology definitely kind of fit exactly what we're looking for. So as far as a ballpark figure on the cost, right now we can utilize the concrete pole that's there if the channel in the pole is large enough for the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I have to provide some information to him as far as we got to open up the box and measure the dimensions in there. So we may be able to utilize our existing pole and just put his technology on there. His pole with the type of technology we need is probably, there's a couple of different variables in the whole setup of this particular technology and using this vendor. And we are still challenged with how to get the video feed to our recorders. They offer free software, free management software if ours isn't compatible. We went to the pool to see how far the signal would have to go across to be received at the pool. Our equipment there is not compatible because it's old analog equipment, and it's probably there's no line of sight. So the technology changes depending on if you can get your signal line of sight or if you're going to do it over a cellular service. So if we end up having to do it a cellular service, which that looks like what we'd have to do, unless we were to erect a tower somewhere in the district, like here at this facility, that's high enough to read the signal. I didn't completely rule that out because I know we had had a discussion that we wanted cameras and that technology at all our facilities. So that is something that we can address in as far as pursuing a proposal with them. But depending on the type of technology we utilize depends on the cost of the equipment, and also whether or not, if we can do a line of sight, there's no monthly fee. If we have to do the cellular service, then there's a monthly fee, you know, $30 a month, $40 a month, for getting that particular camera feed back to our computer system. Okay. So if we have 3 camera feeds coming through the park, then that would be 3 cellular bills that we would be having to take on as far as an operational expense. So generally speaking, just for his pole and the technology, the cellular technology is the more expensive one. We're looking at, on average, about $3,500 a pole. So that would be 3,500 times the 3. Maybe less any incremental cost if we use our existing pole. And of course, this is just the product. So this isn't the installation. We would still have to pay our installer to erect the pole, and then they get their equipment operational.
And then we have monthly service charges, or does that with the 30?
That would just be the cellular service if we end up going that route.
So we just need a couple of options. And when you get proposals, we just need just a couple different options.
So is that something that the supervisors are interested in me pursuing? I mean, this is apparently the only provider in the U.S. that does all of this in one consolidated package. And I think because we're a small organization with limited resources, the more bundled services that we can get with this would probably be better for us.
Well, that sounds great if it works. And I've got this thing in the back of my head saying, oh, I love it, I love it, I love it. But if the people that are living close to the park aren't happy with it after we've done it, then we're back to square one.
Yeah, and I know that Cypress Point and some of the individuals in that area have that similar technology. And so I think that was part of one of the recommendations prior.
The only thing I see is people walk their dogs at odd hours. And so I don't know what that's gonna
Well, we can have it say, you're not supposed to be here unless you're walking your dog and you're from the adjacent community.
Please remove yourself from this area. It's totally closed.
But we can address all that. But as far as you representing kind of that area, this sounds. I mean, you would agree for us to proceed with this, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna have a lot of pictures of dogs, huh?
Well, and those are logistics of the technology that can be, the cameras can be focused, zoomed in on the basketball court, the parking lot. We can even as much as put a camera lower on the pole out on the street and be able to each time a car and actually capture the license plate.
Yeah, that's great. I think
so I think the technology is there, that it's probably definitely worth a closer look.
Yeah, I agree.
If you feel that
let's
we're
move
in the
forward with that.
ballpark as far as what we would be willing to invest.
Yesterday.
Everybody's saying yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
What I would suggest is that April, when you get the package from the vendor, and you're ready to distribute to the board for reading because of the exemption under the public records law, and then we schedule a meeting for the board, and make sure we have that as a
Correct.
closed session, so.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
security item.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next thing that I had made a commitment last time for the signage. We had discussed that we would move forward with replicating the signage that we had and clarifying the language as far as when in the park is open. However, immediately subsequent to that meeting, when we had that discussion, I had a conversation with Deputy Canfield from the Lee County Sheriff's Office, and he had made a recommendation, and so I wanted to bring that to you. I'm ready to, I think I'm ready anyway, to follow through with a sign order, but I wanted to bring to you what his recommendations are, so we can discuss them.
When we rename that?
Okay, so this is a sign, this is a sign over in Ruttenberg Park. When I spoke to Deputy Canfield, he had suggested that we look at some of the signage on how Lee County prepares their signage to allow the officers to know exactly what needs to be enforced in the park. So this is the conversation that we had with him, is that Lee County is very specific on what the park provides, what the park rules are, and the county has everything under an umbrella of an ordinance. So that basically, because they have their ordinance listed, that helps the Lee County Sheriff's Office know exactly what they can enforce in the park and what they can and cannot enforce. So, with that said, in this packet is I was kind of wondering if we wanted to maybe go with our standard sign. I have in the back, we wanted to clarify the hours. So I was wondering, the only sign that we have in the park with our hours on it is this little sign here that says park closed dusk till dawn. So I was wondering if out by the street, instead of having a separate small metal sign next to our wood sign, is if we just wanted to put something under here with reflective paint that just says daylight hours only out by Gateway Boulevard, and then maybe have at the park entrance a sign more like this,
Yeah.
with the name of the park, and drill down on our amenities and our park rules. And what Deputy Canfield had suggested is that once you get your sign laid out, to vet that through Lee County Sheriff Legal, and then that way they can indicate to us whether or not their officers are going to be able to enforce that. So this is a little longer process, because I'm gonna have to work with Tony, for instance, if there's a loitering Florida statute, and we can also go ahead and add this logo to that sign if that's where we're going, to be sure that they know that the park is under surveillance. But there's options here for an entry sign that I think would be more effective if we took a little bit more time and focused on exactly how to make the signage more effective for enforcement by the sheriff's office.
Yeah, and to add to that second part on this aspect of it, I'm not aware of the district having any adopted rule with regards to all these activities at that park. We have to go through that in the public hearing and notice process to do that. And if you want the staff to start developing that, we can then get the advertisement ready to notice of rule development, so we can expedite having the hearing about, what kind of activities do you not want to allow to occur at that.
No football, no baseball, no tennis.
What other activities?
Right. So I think in order to make our signage more effective and enforceable, that I think that we should consider drilling down and actually providing a more comprehensive sign at the entry. So if that's something that you're interested in, I can start working on that. But like Tony said, it may take a little while, so I don't know if you want me to just leave the signs at the entry of the park as is right now. Do we want to go ahead and put this sign up? This is $400 that it's costing us, $400 for this sign. Have another one put up at the front of the park interimly until we get a more developed sign. Wait on the entry of the park, just put a new sign out by Gateway Boulevard.
Oh, I like I like adding the daylight hours, and I think if we can go ahead and get that one replaced by the road.
Which one you pointing to, this one?
Yeah, go ahead and move on that one.
Yeah, that's right, but at the last meeting, we decided, I think, that we were going to update, repair, replace, do reflection on the signs that were already there. Make that fast. In other words, we wanted to get something done fast.
Right, so I can get this sign ordered in the morning, and it can be up by the end of next week. And that's out by Gateway Boulevard. So are we comfortable with the daylight hours only?
The issue, if we're gonna start with one sign, the issue should be at the entry, because the sign at the entry is deteriorated anyway.
Yeah.
So that the detail that we're spending this money on has this nice, clear sign that he can simply, or she can simply go.
It's
"The
dark,
sign's
you shouldn't
right
be
there."
here. Yeah.
And it's right at the entry, so you shouldn't have crossed past that point. If we have it, it's nice to have the one out on Gateway Boulevard, provided we have two signs. But for right now, until we decide on the other issue, I think that it should be installed at the entry.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so do the two signs then?
Well, no, right now, we can't do two signs because we've got to go through the fact of what is going to be right and what's going to be wrong. But this sign can be right for now.
Okay, you want two of those? One at the entry, one out by Gateway Boulevard?
I would say no. I would say temporarily start with one. This one
At
will
the-
be moved when we decide on this one.
So you're talking about putting this one at the entryway,
Correct.
To the
And then
park.
when we decide on this, we'll shift that one
relocate
onto
it
the
out.
street.
So we'll keep the one we have there for now, even though it's a little deteriorated, it's still
Correct.
fine. Okay. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I don't have a
And then
problem
this one,
with that either.
this one is actually, it wouldn't take that much, because we wouldn't define every type of play out there, but it would be playground, volleyball, basketball. I mean, that's what we have support from
Yeah.
facilities. I mean, if the kids are kicking soccer balls, whatever, who cares about that? We're just trying to park features. That's our feature. We have a volleyball court, we have a basketball court, we have a playground. Those are the three that we support. From a park rules perspective, that's where we need to
Well-
spend a little bit of time.
Yeah, and the idea of the pets thing, though, they're not prohibited, and I think a lot of people that walk their dog. So it's just the fact that it's gotta be pets on lead or under
Right.
control
Yeah,
or something like that.
And even if we don't do a visual representation of the image, we could probably state our rules.
Right.
Dogs need to be on a leash,
And
no
pick up-
alcoholic beverages.
And
your
this though
debris.
is internationally friendly.
Say- I'm sorry.
This is international friendly.
Oh.
So, but we can,
Hardly
I think we can
Right.
work through this sign.
Right.
I
But I
like
like,
the
you know how
idea.
big it is by any chance?
It's big.
So it's a good,
That's a lot of information. It's
good, the bigger the better.
Yeah, it's a pretty big sign. Okay, so if I understand correctly, we'll order this new sign, we'll put it at the entry of the park.
Yep.
And one of them is, the paint's holding up. I think the one at the park, the paint's holding up better than the one out by Gateway Boulevard. We'll just take that one and take it down to Gateway
it.
Boulevard and.
That's great.
and, okay.
So how about these, the tow away signs?
So we're having a lot of conversation about the towing. I didn't know if do you think we should take them down? Do you wanna just remove the towing signs
What
and
is
put up
the-
just a general,
If,
I'd leave them.
well, we don't have a policy.
well, and I think we need to work on a policy, but are we really gonna tow a resident who just happens to park in that
I don't
parking lot
wanna
overnight?
I don't wanna get into the
I think
towing
that's,
business.
I don't understand. Now, if
But
they're,
it could be a deterrent for somebody to park there.
yeah,
So I don't think we should take them down as we're
I don't
reviewing
think
our
you should
policy.
discuss that part, if you're not going to have any teeth, maybe it's not good to discuss that.
Well, we're reviewing the policy, so I don't think we should take the sign down while we're reviewing the policy. That's my
Oh,
point.
I didn't say that, but I'm simply saying that maybe the alleged Parker that's been mentioned in the emails might be watching.
He thinks that thousands of people watch these meetings.
Well,
And
So I
hey,
do-
if somebody was telling me that I'm the alleged Parker, I'd be walking.
well, but what I do think, where I think the issue is when there's parking outside of that parking lot. if someone's parking on the side of the road, which is still our property,
No,
but
it's in the parking, it's.
in the
it's-
parking lot.
Yeah,
Okay,
that,
alright.
that's an issue too. So.
Well, we can address that with the policy.
So the ones we have up now actually have a phone number. It's actually implied that someone's actually gonna dial that phone number and do something. Would it make it easier, do you think, if we remove the current tow-away zone signs and just put up something neutral, like the vehicles will be towed at owner's expense, or at least this sign, parking lot reserved for park customers only?
You need to have the statutory required language, which has to have the phone
Okay.
number of the towing operator, 24-hour number, all that.
What about the parking lot reserved for park customers only? What about?
Look at the statute, but that's why that information is on there, so that the person knows when the car is gone, who to call.
Okay, all right, so leave those signs then.
Yep.
I think Gary would like to say
Yeah,
something.
Gary wants to say something, go ahead.
For $400, that was the number that was thrown out. I think we can afford to put an insert into the next utility bills for that community, reminding the people that spillover parking or parking overnight in that fun park is prohibited and is now being discussed as a towaway zone. So we wanted to give them an alert.
Unless we have a rule to that effect, Gary, I'm not so sure that's a great idea.
No, I said that we are in discussion. And do we want to have cars parked there overnight, yes or no?
I don't think so, but.
No.
Okay, so then that part is easy to decide, I think. The idea of towaway is where we're embroiled, or whatever. So by simply putting that in there, indicating that there is no overnight parking, you're not talking about the towaway, you're just
It's a deterrent,
saying that.
yeah.
Then, if you really want to, the alleged accused, we could always pick up the phone and call the alleged person. Hi, how are you?
You're in violation.
This is Gateway. We just wanted to give you a call and let you know that we're calling all the
Your
residents.
tires are all flat.
That, and then if you get the person going, oops, sorry, I didn't realize that. As I've said before, our communications within Gateway are less than stellar.
You used to say abysmal.
I would.
Yeah, they're rotten.
So Gary, what do you?
They're rotten.
What do we think about, even if we update the sign, if it simply says, parking only, no overnight parking?
Fine.
Something a little more general, but it's a little bit more specific?
That's fine.
Until we can figure out what a policy is.
Plus, if you want to do that, you could certainly fit that as a secondary strip on this new
$400.
Yeah, on that,
$400
yeah.
sign.
No
So you
overnight
kill
parking.
two birds with
Yeah.
one stone.
So can we revise this to say something along the lines of, parking only, and then the secondary line would be no overnight parking? You know, it doesn't have to, not verbatim, I'm just giving you an,
Or simply no overnight parking, period.
yeah. Well, I was just
Won't
trying to
that
say
work?
that the parking lot is for parking, no overnight parking.
We'll never be able to police that.
Yeah.
So why enter that
Well,
debate?
our detail would be able to, if you're parked at
Either
after
you
dark.
playing or not playing. I'm sorry, is your.
Well, no, and if it's dark, the park is closed, so any
Right.
vehicles in that parking lot,
Plus,
the
shouldn't
officer
be
can,
there.
shouldn't be there.
Plus, if it's dark, no overnight parking.
I mean, 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other.
Okay, so I'm back to, Tony had indicated that we have to be careful what we put on the signs as far as expecting any enforcement. So I think if we do an interim sign with soft language, it probably won't necessarily, have the meat to be enforceable. But I did.
There's two levels of enforcement. We're talking towing statutory scheme that has the type of language that's required. The other type of enforcement, I'm not sure, if it's an unoccupied vehicle and it's parked there, again, other than the towing, they can't issue citations for that, to my knowledge.
We're not gonna get into
Not gonna
enforcement
change.
right now,
Right.
okay?
How about simply
We
the
may
no
not get into
overnight?
towing. If I have my way, we're not gonna get into towing.
Yeah, I don't
That's-
care. I mean-
That's another bag. Just put a no overnight parking sign on it. Let's get on to other business.
So maybe,
This
maybe 2 on each side or something, whatever.
this doesn't have to be rocket science. Let's move on. We're good, let's move. This will be in by
End of
Friday?
next week, end
Friday?
of next week.
Next Friday, I'm hoping, I just checked with them, and, for these signs, it takes, because it's on a wooden post and they're building it, she says it takes 3 to 5 days.
What does he want for a new composite post that won't rot?
I'll have to ask them that.
Yeah, I would prefer that.
Recycled
Mhm.
stuff.
Did you ever hear of creosote in your old young days?
That
Okay.
goes back to the 1800s.
Yeah, that train trellis in California just burned down.
What if it takes more than a week to get?
I don't, hey,
Yeah, that's fine.
hey.
Okay,
I mean, the
all right.
poll shouldn't delay
It's
the
taken
time.
us 2 weeks to even discuss this, so, you know.
Okay, so we have liftoff with the signs.
Yeah.
And I am going to start working on this, correct? As far as getting all of
Yeah,
our
and just
stuff
as
on
a,
there.
just as a clarification for our sheriff detail, if it's not in play, what I would recommend is that we try to tailor that to when the park is closed. 6 to whatever, if at all possible. So we have an officer around the area at the time where there's the least monitoring, and when the park is closed. So I'm not sure exactly what their hours are, but if we have the opportunity to say, 6 o'clock to whatever, if it's 4 hours or 8 hour shifts, I'm not sure, but let's try to keep them there later in the evening as opposed to when the park is open, because that kind of defeats the purpose. And if we can stipulate where we'd like them to be based out of, or at least check in that parking lot, because part of that is the deterrent. So if they're parked in that parking lot, that's gonna stop people from coming in, rather than if they're parked somewhere else or riding around.
But you're taking away from them the ability to maybe catch somebody that's in the act of.
Yeah, or whatever they recommend. I'm just stating, I mean, most importantly, let's have them at the hours of where the issues are. That's priority number one.
So for those of you bad guys out there, yes, that's true.
I don't think all our bad guys are watching our webcast.
Never can tell.
Okay, so when we initially ordered the detail, we went with, and I thought that it was agreed on, that we would go with a more random type of schedule. So if I'm understanding correctly, you would rather them just stick to that nighttime shift
Yes.
after park hours?
I think that's clear.
Yes.
Okay.
No objection, so
Okay.
ordered.
And I think that was it for me.
Thank you. Margaret?
Yes, I have two questions, and I already got an answer to one. The other one was, have we done any more with the bathymetric study that we did? Has that been totally completed, and was it acceptable? Are we gonna use it?
Are you referring to the bathymetrics that or make up the work that was not done on the testing by Aquagenics? Or are you talking about the bathymetrics that were done some times ago that we talked about the quality?
Yes.
The latter, the latter.
The quality
Yeah.
one.
Alls I know is that the data that we received from both Lee County and the second vendor conflicted with the data that you got from the vendor that did all the original bathymetrics. I don't know that anybody has gone back and done any analysis, maybe asked Tyler if, see, that stuff doesn't really come into play until we get into the aeration, but it's something that, if it's wrong, we need to know it and correct it. But to my knowledge, nobody's gone in and checked those other ponds. The only one we did was Magnolia Lakes.
Okay, I just didn't wanna lose sight of that, cause I know all that, it's disappointing to find that there's some discrepancy as to whether those studies were even of any value. But
Well, the other thing that's been done is, and I think we've talked about this, is that Aquagenics' contract last year called for all of the, what's the word I want, pond testing, the qualitative testing, and they didn't do it. They were internally had some changes, and it fell through the cracks. Well, what we did is we finally, they came back and told us, well, it was a $1,500 I told him, I said, I was born at night, but not last night. It isn't $1,500, and I believe Elle and maybe April was involved. We got it up somewhere $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. And then, obviously, we had been doing our own testing, so why be duplicative? What we said we would do is have them exchange that for an equal value at so many dollars per acre of ponds. And Elle came up with a list of ponds, and they're supposed to be working on that. I believe maybe one of those ponds was the pond that had been done by Jeff. So, and I think it was I believe it was 114, but I had to check with Elle to verify that. But other than that, the ponds that we had done, Tyler, do you remember, was it 6, 7, and 8, 104, 90, 83, something like that?
I think 87, 106, 7, and 8, and 62.
Yeah. To my knowledge, no, to answer your question. I don't know that we've gone back and checked those.
Okay, all right, that was my question, because there was a lot of money we spent on those.
So in line with Margaret's question, the bathymetric study was done. No aerators have been installed. So what's the point? Are you saying we don't need aerators? And if we do need aerators, why don't we have it as a process that every time that we redo a pond, that we also include putting in an aerator?
I think I said that once. That was exactly my recommendation, is that we go in and do phase.
Call me crazy, it just came somewhere from behind, you know.
I would have liked to have seen that the SRF would have included the aeration, that when we're in there and having the access issues that we've got anyway, is address that issue. But the answer is, right now, we've elected not to do that.
Well, we did add additional dollars to the budget for
That was for
additional aerators.
non-construction costs. We didn't do any aeration, to my knowledge. It was non-construction costs, soft costs.
No, but I think we did add additional dollars for aerators, and because of this discussion that as we were doing pond repairs, that we would look to implement aerators where needed. So that's why we adjusted our budget because we'd already kind of gone down the path of budgeting.
If
for
we've done that,
SRF.
then the question that Margaret asked is even more critical, because the ponds that we're going to be doing in phase one would be the ones we would. The extra money that we had, we concentrated on phase one. Now what we need to do is to concentrate, if we did it on the right ones on phase one, did we pick the right ones out? Because if we're going to be doing the aeration, but concurrent with the aeration, and April and I have talked about this, we already found out the logistics of getting the contractors in for the pond maintenance. That's issue one. You introduce a whole new set of ballgame on aeration, as the Pelican Preserve people have ran into, of how you get, where you're going to locate these blowers, easements, the whole 9 yards, and we haven't even touched that.
All right.
Well, maybe
We haven't
it's
even
time to
touched
reach
that.
out and touch someone.
I agree.
Okay.
Another
So-
one to put on the list.
And Stephen, do you find any flaw in what Doug just said? Did we not put the money in?
We did put the money in, but when we had that discussion, the concern was it enough? And
Okay.
the answer to it was that we didn't have the final report yet as to what the real, be able to put your hands around what the number really was gonna be.
Okay, so then my question is how far is X being what we did put in, and X plus?
And how quickly can we get there?
Just talk to
By the
Tyler.
first?
Just talk to Tyler, and to repeat what we had talked earlier, when you're doing an SRF project, and what you get approved in the facilities plan is the only thing you can build. There is no discussion of aeration in the facilities plan. So if we put money in, it probably was a little premature, because the facilities plan does not address aeration,
We can't do that in conjunction?
not unless it's in the facilities plan.
Unless it's on your own dime.
Yeah, well,
Y-
that's what
yeah,
we're saying.
unless it's on your own
We're saying we
network.
budgeted that money
Yeah.
outside of the SRF.
If it's outside the SRF, that's a whole different
Yeah,
ballgame.
so, but we could address it
How much
in
did we
parallel.
put in?
6,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking up now. I'm not.
Thank you.
Well, you got a good memory. I don't
I
remember
think
that
it's
at all.
60. I don't know. I don't want to speak out.
But when you start dealing with that aeration, and at one time I quoted a number, and I'd gotten that from either Bob or, I don't think it was Phil, I think I got it from Bob, but was it $5,000 an acre? I want to say that number. I could be off a factor or
You're
two.
going to get bullied.
Of the
Pelican
cost per
Preserve
acre.
just put in 27 aerators. It was just under 400 grand. So.
They put in
for
how many?
cost, 27.
So you're looking at 17.
Well, I'm sorry, 27
we did
lakes
not-
worth of aerators.
So the question is how
No,
many
no, no,
acres,
no,
so we
we've
need to know
gotta
how many
start
acres
somewhere.
that's
Yeah,
equal
yeah.
to.
So if we did 60 divided by 17, wow,
it's
we could
30
put in
acres.
3.5.
Hey.
Okay.
So if it's 30 acres, that's a lot of money.
Yep.
My 5,000's off.
Well, but we may not need them in.
Yeah, not even close. We put in 10.
What?
10,000 a year.
I'm sorry,
okay.
we can't afford one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
We'll
what
just
the
go out
rest-
here on pond 90 and that'll be about
I
it.
thought it was.
In
I
the
thought it
long
was
too.
60, but I thought it was higher
So,
than 10.
having said that,
Because we weren't sure how
Before
much
September
we
1st,
knew that there were gonna be
we
some
better come up
lakes
with an
there.
idea.
At least to partner with Phase One, and if we can figure out, you know, at least get an estimate of how many of those lakes.
I can work with Tyler now.
If there's
on that. We can
13, and
punch
if
that quick.
if we can get a
Okay.
ballpark of maybe 6,
So
let's at least
let's
budget
make
for
a-
that.
Make a motion how much that should be. What do you want to
Well,
start
we
as the
don't. We
pilot?
have time for Ed and
We do?
and Tyler.
Today's August when?
No, we have one more opportunity on the before the budget gets finalized, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say let Ed and work with Tyler or Tetra Tech and come up with a ballpark of out of the 13, what's our Phase One amount that we need to budget for? If that's 13 or if it's 7, let's at least start with an estimate.
Well, now we come full circle to what I
Let's-
started back
let's-
about 2 hours ago. We first need, in my opinion, we first need to determine how many of these ponds we're going to do, and that really is a lineal footage calculation of what the ability of these vendors are to do. And you've got 6 months and basically to do it, and that doesn't count Sundays. So you throw out 180, you're back around to 135, 140 days.
Well-
How many feet can they do, which determines how many ponds you can do, which means then I would think that if you're going to do those ponds on the restoration, those would be the same ponds. If needed, you would be doing the aeration.
Well, couldn't we basically say if we're out of the 13 in Phase One, regardless if that's a 1-year plan or 3-year plan, out of those 13, can we ballpark how many of those we think we'll need aerators for?
I think we can do that.
And then let's base our budget on that, just saying that within 2017 budget, we're gonna address, you know, let's say if it's 6. Now, if it's 13, we may wanna split that in half and, you know, do
Correct.
half for 2016
Keep-
and then table it. Just come
Keep-
back with a ballpark number of those 13.
Keep in mind, all this is with a big question mark that we have, for all practical purposes, no bathymetrics that will provide the information to us to really do this
Well, we gotta take
with
a
any degree of
stab in the
accuracy.
dark.
I think if
It's a
Pelican
stab
Res-
is all it is.
Hey, if Pelican Reserve did what they did versus the age of our ponds, I think it's rather obvious that we need.
It's
that.
gonna be all.
Therefore, we need to get this thing started and get some momentum there. Okay?
Yeah.
Agree. Thank you.
Wow.
So Bill, I just have
don't know
one
how we
last.
got there, but we got there.
So I just got one last thing before we adjourn.
I'm done,
you
yeah,
finished?
I'm good.
Go ahead, Jay.
So I just want to see if I can get the board's consent for us to hold a workshop as soon as we possibly can for us to address our high-level org structure.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Yep.
I want to write these down.
Okay.
What are they, please?
Yep, high-level org structure. So we would draft potential options for our future state organizational structure. So that's one task. The second task, based on that potential draft, I envision coming out of it with at least two leadership positions, which would be general manager and public works manager. It may be 2, it could be 3, whatever that is, but I'm just saying we need to have a workshop to have a high-level org structure, identify the senior leadership roles, and draft job descriptions for those roles, and potential salary ranges. I think we need to have a workshop in order to hash that out. That's what we need to do in order to progress to get to a point of where we either recommend who would sit in those positions, but I don't think we can get there unless we have a workshop. And I don't mind leading that workshop just to take notes and manage the conversation, but I would not be opposed to bringing someone else in.
And then we need to have somebody in here that knows this business, and none of us do. It's nothing, you know. So, I
We should-
again would urge
We
that
should
you
reach out to Joe.
bring in to Joe DeServo and have him be the leader and guide us
Okay.
through this to make the right decisions.
That's perfect.
So we should reach out to him and find out when he's available and
Yeah.
how much it would be.
And I don't mind working with Joe to come up with the agenda.
I disagree with that latter part. I think we've got enough intelligence on this board that we can do that without him.
You know, I would say that if, and what I've heard doing research outside of the board, if he's a subject matter expert, we need someone to help us come up with a decision. If nothing else, we need a third party to come in and help us get to a solution through collaboration and input. So I'm not opposed to bringing Joe in. I think it's a very smart decision.
Well, I disagree with you. I think we're making way too much of it. We're talking about an organization that has 11 folks. This is not General Electric or General Motors or Ford. We've got 11 people, and all we have to do is decide how we're gonna line them up.
Bill, we've kind of floundered with this for years. We've gone through operations manager after operations manager. And so something we're doing is not working, and we're
The-
trying to get it to where it's working.
The reason it's not working is because never made the decision to hire an operations manager.
Well, now's not the time for us to hash that out. That's why we need a workshop. Do we need to agree, consent to it? Do I need to make a motion? How do I,
Well,
Yep.
how would I proceed?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait just a moment. Tony,
Yes, sir.
what do we need to do in order to have a public workshop as far as notification, advertising?
At least 7 days prior, notice in the public paper. We can also post it on the website and the district offices as an additional, but 7 days notice in advance of the meeting. And I would suggest that before the board takes any action to set the workshop, that you open up the floor for any comments from the public, because this is a new action item.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody want to talk?
No, not.
And this,
not-
is it, hey,
No,
Tony,
why
is it
not?
7, is it just 7 calendar days or 7 business days?
7 calendar days
Okay.
prior to the date, just advertise in the paper's general circulation, and, have a generalized agenda. Always recommended.
We need to find out.
I
if
would agree with
Joe's-
that, and I totally agree with Joe for a facilitator.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't think we can set a date without knowing Joe's availability.
Yeah, Nancy Hall from Pelican. I agree completely that having a third party makes sense. Margaret is exactly right. I've been coming to these meetings since forever. And we've had operations managers on staff, we've had operations people be part of the management company, and there are problems both ways, and really to have a facilitator help you all work through it makes an abundance of sense.
Okay.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Bill?
I mean, how much better could it be than to have somebody that teaches at the Florida Association of Special Districts,
Okay.
actually
you've-
runs,
you've
I'm
made-
sorry,
you've
I'm
made
still
your-
talking.
You've made your point.
You'll concede?
I'll concede.
Fine, it's done.
Okay, so what we'll need to do is, we'll need to just, before we can set a date,
Find available dates of Mr. DeServo, if
Yeah.
that's the sense of the board, and then come back to the board with the dates, make sure everybody is available.
Yes.
And then work out the parameters and scope of it.
Yep.
And- And whoever's gonna conduct it, but you may have Mr. DeServo be, like you said, the facilitator, the collaborator.
Sure.
To conduct.
we'll work it out.
But you're right on everything you say, but we've got to have what I call an agenda. We've
Yeah.
got to know what outcome we want.
Yep. And I can
Not-
lay that out.
Not the specific, but what outcome we.
So I think what I would do is I'll work with Joe to build the agenda, and then we will circulate it for approval.
You can get to the board for discussion, as far as what the agenda will be, then we can have. that
Yes,
discussion.
exactly.
So could we, that we can't talk amongst, but could you send Tony your proposed agenda?
Yes.
That could be shared with us?
Circulate it, and then he could filter the responses back. Yep, perfect, no problem with that. And I would recommend that. So we're trying to collaborate,
And
we're
whatever
trying to
we send
all
in
get
advance,
input.
saying This is what we'll bring up at the next board meeting, so you have it in advance.
I understand,
Thank you.
but,
Yes.
but we want to receive it before the board
Correct.
meeting.
Right. So we're all on the same page with what the agenda is.
For the workshop, correct?
Thank you.
And dates for when the proposed workshop could be held.
And ideally, we want to get to this as soon as possible.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so.
Okay.
And part of that agenda would be typically workshops, decisions are not made, but you know, if you are going to make decisions at a
Options. We will
workshop,
come up
you
with.
have to put that in
Yeah,
notice.
we'll come up with options. Yep, no problem.
Okay.
Do
Beautiful.
we need a motion for that, or are we all just in agreement and we're just gonna do it?
Did you say motion or emotion?
A motion with a motion.
I'm comfortable with the consensus unless April.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got.
We're good.
We're good. We've got consensus. All right.
Good, good, good.
Is there anything further?
Yeah, we're supposed to
Board
leave our
tonight?
computers on the desk.
Connect.
I'm serious. We're supposed to leave the computers on the desk.
Thank you. Anything further?
Yes, thank you.
Anything? Anyone? Anyone?
Nope.
We're adjourned.
Okay,
Thank you.
good meeting.
I tried to ask him a question that you had about payroll benefits.
I think when I found this, I figured it out.
Okay.
I got to sit down with him and I'm like, good Lord, I don't know.
Unlike a lot of companies where your what do you call it, percentages are pretty much applicable across the board, because your salary ranges, some of these are fixed, and yours blows it crazy. You can have a deal from 18% to 70%. So really, that's where I was having confusion. And when I looked at this and saw that column right there, that answered my question right off the bat. So, thanks, Steve.
Oh, no, I'm just stepping in. It'll be a official person coming on. But I like the chair.